My name is David Stankiewicz. I want to welcome you to today's webinar presentation hosted by the IEEE Standards Association. Today's presentation topic is on ethically aligned design, prioritizing well-being for AI and autonomous systems. I want to thank everybody for joining us, and especially our guest speakers, who we'll get to in just a moment, for being able to speak on today's topic. So thanks in advance to John, Raja, Sarah, and Konstantinos. Before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping items, plus let you know how you can participate in today's session. We are going to let you know that here on slide 2, upon entering the webinar, your line is automatically muted. This is going to be a one-way audio broadcast with a slide deck presentation from our speakers, so you can listen through your voice over IP, or otherwise known as VoIP, to experience the audio portion. If you have any issues with audio or the slide deck visually, just send a note to me, the host, David Stankiewicz, and I can troubleshoot throughout the presentation to hopefully get you some help. If you do have a question for the speakers at the end of the presentation, and we'll talk about this in just a moment, there's going to be what's called a chat box or feature in the right-hand window pane of your WebEx interface. You can type your question in there and send it to the host, and we will get to as many of those at the end of the presentation as possible. I also want to make a note here, it's not located on the slide, but we are recording today's presentation. So if you do miss a portion of the session, or you just want to rewatch it on demand, we will let you know after the conclusion of the webinar where we're going to post that and how you can find it, as well as the slide deck and the PowerPoint that the presenters are going to go through. So that's the basic housekeeping items I wanted to go through. What I'll do is I'll advance to the next slide here, and I'll bring on our moderator, John C. Havens. And John, I'm going to go ahead and mute my line and then kick it over to you.
Hey, David, thank you so much. And thanks also to all the folks at IEEE who helped make this happen. Really appreciate it. Everyone, welcome. I'm John Havens. I will introduce myself a little bit further in a minute. I want to give you a sense of the agenda and also a quick update. Unfortunately, Kay Firth-Butterfield is extremely sick today. So we are sad that she can't join us, and we will be doing future webinars where Kay will be able to attend. But because she's so sick and actually, even couldn't really speak, we didn't want to try to tax her on the call today. She sends her best regards. However, the great news is, and she'll introduce herself in a moment, we are very blessed to have Sarah Spiekerman calling from Vienna, who is a really important part of the work being done by the IEEE Global Initiative, and we'll hear more from her in a moment. So basic rundown of the 60 minutes that we have today. The speakers will do quick 1 to 2 minute introductions of themselves. We're going to hear from Konstantinos Karachalios speaking about all the great ethics work being done across all the different operating units of IEEE. Then Raja Shatila, Sarah Spiekerman, and myself, as needed, I'll pipe in, are going to describe just a quick introduction to the work being done in one of those areas that IEEE is focusing on with ethics, called the IEEE Global Initiative. And that's really to lay the groundwork and give you some specifics for some of the topics that were listed on the webinar sign-up that you got for this event. Then we're going to go to maybe some specific questions for the speakers, which I'll direct, or we may just go right to open Q&A. So the upfront is going to be about 30 minutes, maybe a little bit more, and that's just to give you a real sort of a sense of all this great work that's being done. And then if there are questions, we can start taking them, and I'll be directing those questions. Next slide, please, David. This is quickly just a little bit about me. I'm Executive Director of the program that we'll be talking more about in a minute, the IEEE Global Initiative for Ethical Considerations in Artificial Intelligence and Autonomous Systems. I'm also an author about a book, of a book called Artificial Intelligence, which is really about the need to create a code of ethics for artificial intelligence. As it says here at the bottom, we're going to take questions at the end of this opening section of the presentations, but please feel free to start sending questions in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them in the order they're received, and thanks for your patience. A lot of parts is in any webinar. For our speakers, just so you know, Konstantinos, Raja, when you're doing your sections, go ahead and just tell David when you want to advance your slides by saying next slide, please. Okay. Well, Konstantinos is Managing Director of the Standards Association and member of the IEEE Management Council. Thanks, Konstantinos. Raja, do you want to give us a quick introduction for yourself?
Sure. My name is Raja Shatila. I'm located in Paris, France. I'm actually the chair of this IEEE Global Initiative for ethical consideration of AI and autonomous systems that we are going to speak about today. My daily work is at the University Pierre and Marie Curie in Paris, and where I lead the Institute of Intelligent Systems and Robotics. And I was also past president of the IEEE Robotics Information Society, which led me, of course, to have a lot of thinking and reflection about the ethical implications of these technologies.
Thanks, Raja. Sarah, can you give us a quick introduction to yourself?
Yes, hello. My name is Sarah, and I'm a professor for information systems in Vienna, in Austria, where I chair the Institute for Management Information Systems at Vienna University of Economics and Business. And I'm part of this gang here because I wrote a book. It's called Ethical IT Innovation, and it's a big textbook on how to build ethical systems. And this is why I joined IEEE.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you again, Sarah, for coming in last minute. Kay, just to thank her for her time in preparation for this, even though she's not on the call. Kay, as well as being the IEEE Global Initiative Vice Chair, is Executive Director of a fantastic new program called AI Austin, based in Austin, Texas. She also is a lawyer and has all this wonderful experience. And again, we'll have her on another webinar soon. Now we're going to pass it over to Konstantinos for his presentation. Konstantinos, take it away.
Yes, thank you, John. This is the mission statement or the tagline of IEEE here. This is the organization I represent here in this webinar, and I'm members of the Management Council of IEEE, and it is dedicated to advancing technology for humanity. The four is probably the most important word among the four one. And why? Because there is among the technical world, the engineers and scientists, an implicit assumption that advancing technology is always good for humanity. Well, if you call it out, then probably it is not. So the question is, what we need to do additionally to make sure that advancing technology really benefits humanity, not only in the short term, but also in the long term. And there have been, in the last century, there have emerged at least two areas where the threat has become very evident. One was the threat around, the possible threat around nuclear technologies, which could lead to a very, very quick extinction of humanity. And the other is the long-term threat of climate change and the anthropogenic reasons for this, and in particular the technology-related anthropogenic reasons. So we don't want to add a third threat to the two existing ones. And so there is a lot of discussion about systems that can be autonomous or can surpass humanity and so on. And there have been, so there is a lot of hype there. But beyond this, already what happens already now, beyond robotics, we talk about the algorithms and their pervasive presence in our everyday life. This is something that it is serious enough for us to look at. And this is how the trajectory of IEEE met the trajectory of, not of artificial intelligence specifically alone, but the ethical and social implications of it. Because there are many other organizations dealing with artificial intelligence, there are associations really who deal specifically with the technology. Our work here deals with specific aspects, the ethical and societal and also the non-technical aspects of artificial intelligence. Next slide, please. So, this is dealing with ethical or societal issues is not something new to IEEE. Here, this is a list of activities and structure within IEEE which deal with this, also including some recent ones. But for instance, there has existed since many years a Society for Social Implications of Technology. We have held a conference called Ethics every 2 years. We have a code of ethics, our professional conduct, and so on. So there are many elements within IEEE, and this is here really not an inclusive list. This is only a small part of what we've been doing. But still, the effort we're doing now has really a very different dynamic and may become transformative for the entire organization. It is not just a continuation. And so this is an inflection, a possible inflection in time, in the bifurcation of IEEE. And this may mean a new path for our organization. So this is really serious. This is not just one additional program of IEEE. This may have really an impact on the entire organization, what we're doing here. And if we go to the next slide. Yes, please bring the whole text there. So there are at least 2 big programs now that have been launched in parallel. One is the Tech Ethics Program, which is launched and coordinated by a big organization within IEEE, which we call Technical Activities. They're responsible for organizing all the conferences and the proceedings and so on. And they have a broad charter to consider technical ethics concerns across all technologies. This program will focus more on a broad debate and discussion and to inform good policy and decision making. So this is where there is a best tradition of IEEE, where everybody can come and express their opinion, this gets published and disseminated and so on. So, and this will be specifically on the ethical aspects of technology, starting with artificial intelligence and autonomous systems. And the reason for this focusing is because we have already started something which we call the IEEE Global Initiative for Ethical Considerations in Artificial Intelligence and Autonomous Systems. And this is now, the rest what you're going to see is related to this. And this is not the discussion part, because there are many discussions worldwide right now about this. There is no day that I don't see big publications, also in the mainstream media, this topic being discussed. I think we have to do something. And in some cases, we're already late in doing something. So, but what to do and who to do? These are not simple questions. Well, we say we started doing what we can do, hoping that others may join and use. But this is really a leadership by circumstances. And just to give you an example, and we do this by creating consensus. And this is where also very strong. IEEE is known very much also for its standards. Just think Wi-Fi. Every time you go into the internet, be it wireless or wired, probably you go through the standards that have been generated through IEEE. So very present technologically already. And so this shows the power of consensus, because these are not standards which are mandated by any government or by any industry. These are bottom-up consensus built globally and quite inclusive through global communities. And this is our hope, that we can achieve something like this also in the area of ethical aspects, because there is nobody there to tell us exactly what to do. There is no government who can cover the whole world, and there is no industry who can impose, fortunately, its will on the rest of humanity. So it is our duty, the global technical communities, to do whatever we can do to guide this discussion and offer voluntarily some good suggestions, hoping that they may be followed. And there are examples, as I said, Wi-Fi, Internet, there are 2 classic examples in the field of technology where this works. It becomes ubiquitous and nobody questions it. It works. So next slide, please. And again, this is the organization I'm leading and represent, but in addition, I'm also a member of the Management Council of IEEE, and I assume also my responsibility for the overall direction of IEEE in this context. And at the end of the discussion, I will be pleased to answer you specific questions regarding the relation of what you're going to see now with IEEE, because we have a lot of IEEE members now in the list. I have seen perhaps 2/3 of the registered participants were IEEE members. So you must understand this is a story you can be proud of the organization, but there are many people who participate in this effort who are not IEEE members. They are new people coming to IEEE from the field of philosophy, ethics, sociology, law, and so on. This is quite an enrichment. And we are building a new community, enlarging our boundaries and our reach. All in all, both the process and the outcome up to now are extremely positive, and I'm very much looking to having a spectacular year where this is going to evolve and also become applied. And I give the floor back to David or to John to guide us through the webinar.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Konstantinos. Really appreciate that level set for the beginning of the conversation. David, could you advance the next slide, please? And great, this is more info about standards, which Konstantinos talked about. Next slide, please, David. So for the next about 20 minutes, Raja, Sarah, and me briefly will provide a more in-depth introduction to the global initiative, the IEEE Global Initiative, as Konstantinos mentioned. So Raja, can we start off with you, please?
Okay, I was just unmuting myself. Hello again. So let me give you a brief introduction on this IEEE Global Initiative on ethical considerations for AI and autonomous systems. Konstantinos has set the global stage within the perspective of IEEE, and now I'm focusing on this global initiative, as we call it for short. Now, actually things started in late 2015, in November, when I met Konstantinos and John and other persons in a meeting, in an IEEE meeting. It's a periodical technical activity board meeting, and we're members from all societies and organizations for IEEE meet. And Konstantinos actually asked me to join a discussion about this issue of the ethical consequences and considerations related to intelligent and autonomous systems. We had a very exciting discussion at that time, actually, and our main objective was really to try to create a community that reflects on those considerations so that we can avoid two pitfalls when considering autonomous systems and AI. One attitude is the fear. Many articles in the press or people from the general public have some fear from AI taking over the world or taking over jobs, for example. And this sometimes is founded, sometimes is not really founded on real scientific or technical grounds, but sometimes it's an impression. And it's our responsibility as scientists and technologists and people who develop such systems to really inform the public and inform the decision makers and everyone else about the real impacts of AI. And also to really deal with the actual real issues that are raised by these technologies. There is another pitfall or another attitude, which is the, how would I say, admiration, uncritical admiration, when you see new technology able to achieve a lot of things that were not possible just a few years or maybe even a few months ago. And this admiration sometimes blinds people from the actual possible negative consequences of technologies. Every technology has possible positive and possible negative consequences, and it's our responsibility in an approach which is commonly called responsible research or responsible design to consider those possible consequences, reflect upon them, and provide insights on how to deal with them. In doing this, we want also to get away from the idea that ethics is something which is usually felt as adding burden or constraints on innovation. We think, on the contrary, that ethics and considering ethical values in developing technology will help advance innovation, because in this case, innovation will be much more aligned towards human well-being, and this will, of course, diminish fear in the process, which leads to a more welcoming by the public of these innovations. So that was the basic initiative motivations. The launch, the actual work started in April 2016, and last December 13, we published the first document, which is called Ethically Aligned Design, that you can download on the initiative's webpage, and which summarize all the work that has been done by over 100 people during that time. Later on, John will give you more details about the process. Next slide, please. This initiative, as you heard Konstantinos mentioning, he is within the global IEEE board, and he is more specifically managing the Standards Association. The Standards Association within IEEE is a specific organization that is more oriented, as you see it by its name, towards producing standards and having a more direct connection to industry. And of course, in these areas of AI and autonomous systems, it's not just about research, it's also about products and systems that are achieved by industry and that have to be commercialized. So it's very important that we keep in mind that doing this, we are not just addressing academic research, we are also addressing development, standards, and the way products are finally coming out to the market. This Industry Connections program within Standards Association is a program that enables transversal collaboration between organizations within IEEE and outside when they reflect on their own technologies and refine their thinking on those emerging technologies issues to incubate new standards, new activities, and so on. So this was the perfect fit for such an initiative, which was not only related to such, for example, technical society of IEEE or such specific unit of IEEE, but rather transversal. Next slide, please. So the mission that we decided to achieve is to address actually all the problems related to ethical design, and the purpose is really to ensure that every technologist, by technologist we mean any person who is involved in developing those technologies, AI and autonomous systems, meaning academia, engineers, any actor, even people from other domains which are not pure technology, they develop these systems. They work in their companies, in their universities, or in their institutions, but they didn't have really, in general, a training, a specific training on ethical considerations. They didn't have an education that makes them really able or really sensitive to the ethical issues. They have projects, they develop the projects without thinking necessarily about the consequences, and therefore what we want is to empower those people so that in the whole process of designing and realizing their systems, they really prioritize ethical considerations in their work. Next slide. So to achieve this mission, we wanted to provide guidelines, to provide concrete steps, concrete methods, for example, so that ethical aspects of human well-being are really involved in the development and the design phase and in the workings of autonomous and AI systems. And as I said earlier, these are not necessarily automatically considered in the current design of such systems. So this is really the approach. It's not just general considerations. It's really providing concrete ways, advice, or methodologies even to do that. And I'm sure Sarah will also give you more details about these processes. And we want to really make this very positive. It's not a constraint that we are putting on people or on companies or on researchers to develop their systems. It's, as we said, reframing the notion of success so that success means that ethical aspects, ethical considerations are taken into account. This prioritization of ethical values is the condition to develop successful systems and not systems that are oriented toward other possible uses or possible behaviors. Next slide. And I will, at this point, just give you a brief explanation about the deliverables of our process and hand the floor to Sarah or John. We have two main deliverables. One is the document, ethically aligned design, that I mentioned earlier, that everyone can download on the website of the initiative. And this document, about 100 pages, is organized in a way that you can go there and see all the issues and considerations and also the proposals we provide to develop ethically aligned design. And the other deliverables is proposals for standards. Standards are very important because this is what developers of system respect when they manufacture, when they design their system. So by providing proposals for standards that go through a process of refinement and development and then become official standards, we are providing also those designers with concrete means to embed ethical considerations in the design, in the development, in the use of AI and autonomous systems. Now, John and Sarah will provide you with more details about the process, the content, and what we are doing next. Thank you.
Great, Roger. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Next slide, please, David. I'm not going to talk too much about this because Konstantinos and this is John. Konstantinos and Roger have already spoken about this. And mainly we'd love for you to go to the website and download the document for yourself. But in terms of the pragmatic side of the document, right now there's 8 sections that align to 8 committees focused on different areas. So for instance, personal data or autonomous weapons, those are different subject areas. Each of the sections opens up with a one-page position statement from the committee, which is a way for you to quickly see what they are going to be talking about in a opening way. And then usually about 8 or 9 pages for each of the committees. They then list issues and candidate recommendations, and they provide resources for where they made those candidate recommendations. And the logic there is the issue is a statement that would be something that other technologists, engineers, people working in the field, manufacturing these technologies may be facing. And the logic is we wanted to make it very, very pragmatic, as if you were speaking to a peer, at the coffee machine at a conference. Hey, in personal data, I'm dealing with X, and X becomes an issue. And then the committees would discuss that issue, and then where they had candidate recommendations, meaning early recommendations, they would write those down. And our logic was to give something pragmatic for readers to go to. And a lot of times those candidate recommendations will be referring to other documents that already exist or other organizations, because we're trying to be so collaborative and consensus building oriented. Also, when you go to the site and you can see how it says for public discussion, we are actively looking for anyone, all of you on the phone. We would love your feedback. It is in an RFI format, a request for input. And when you download the document, the first page describes what we're looking for in the submission guidelines. Obviously, it's a big document. You can read one section and provide feedback, 1 paragraph to 2 pages. We'd love your feedback. So we also are going to be building towards version 2 to release probably about October of next year. Next slide, please. And this is where Sarah, again, thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us last minute. Sarah, was going to have you talk. As Raja mentioned, the initiative is able to make recommendations to the IEEE Standards Association for potential standards projects. Right now, P7000 is in a working group format, and Sarah is the vice chair. A lot of her work inspired P7000. So Sarah, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can give a couple-minute description of what we're doing there.
Yes, thank you for giving me the possibility to present P7000. So anyone who is working in innovation teams or developing technology, we run through several stages of projects, starting, as they are described, for instance, in system development lifecycle. So we start out with project identification and selection, and then we move on and drill down into concrete technologies that the company wants to realize or upgrade to. And then we have to analyze the system that we are looking for, and we have to analyze the organizational environment, the processes. We may be doing ML modeling, things like that, and then we design and implement and run through iterative kind of software engineering, and in the end we launch the project and maintain it and observe it and feedback into new versions of that system. And in this traditional approach to system design and analysis, there have been no steps or foreseen for ethical considerations. Neither when you decide for going for a project, it has never been asked, will this value, be harmed? To what extent will it be harmed? Or can we create extra value for humans, beyond the functionality, beyond the efficiency? And this is what's being done in P7000. So we are actually going in detail, looking into every one of these system development phases, and we are trying to pull out what ethical questions should be asked, when, by whom, in what way, what tools could support this ethical questioning and reasoning. And we do that throughout the system development lifecycle. So we start very generic. We talk about leadership. We look into philosophical models, decision models to reason about the ethics of a project. We look into stakeholder processes that are necessary. We look into value elicitation, harms and benefits analysis, and value conceptualization. And then we move on into the next stage where we actually follow something that was developed by Battia Friedman called value-sensitive design. So we are trying to add on the traditional feasibility analysis and ethical feasibility analysis. And then as we move down more concretely into the systems, we are adding aspects of risk assessment to system design and see whether security and privacy risks or other kind of value risks that we identified in earlier phases, how these can be mitigated, how these can be controlled. And in the end, as a company runs through all of those ethical steps that we propose as add-ons to system development, we end up hopefully with an ethics by design. Now, you know, you've heard about security by design, privacy by design, and what we want to do here is ethics by design. And our hope is also, in the end, to measure certain KPIs, as we call them, ethical KPIs. So at the beginning of a project, we make, say privacy is something really important, and we develop key performance indicators for privacy and meeting privacy demands, potentially beyond the law, or in addition to the law, or in eKPI calls that you have certain freedoms and controls over the system, and when it's then launched, we can measure whether the KPIs actually became true as the stakeholders and leadership teams and imagined them at the start of a project. So P7000 is very concrete, very practical, very applied, and it doesn't focus on one value, but on any value that's relevant for technology in a specific deployment context. And that's it. Thank you.
Awesome, Sarah. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. David, next slide, please. And since we're at 11:40, we're going to zip through this to get to questions. So just want to say, please feel free to start sending questions. If you want to address someone specific, just go ahead and list their name when you send those. And we already have a couple questions. I'll start fielding those soon. We discussed these deliverables in terms of the standards projects. Want to let everyone know that along with P7000, we now have P7001 and P7002, which have also been approved. My email address is going to be at the end of the presentation. Any follow-up questions you have, or if any of you would like to join these groups, of course, working groups for the IEEE Standards Association are open and part of the consensus building process. And I can provide you more information in the links about where you can find information about those specific working groups. Next slide. We don't have to go this now. This is just how our process works for how we create our drafts. Basically, we put together a draft as we have now, version 1. We update it so it becomes sort of 1.5. We have a live meeting, and then we come out with a second version. Next slide, please, David. We have live meetings. We had one in Europe that went very well. We have one coming up June 5th and 6th in Austin, Texas. If you'd like to find out more information about that or potentially come, please, again, email me after the webinar is done. The live meetings are where we essentially have new people come into the process and kind of kick the tires and provide feedback directly to the document. Next slide. This just lists all of our committees. The committees are also listed on our website in a document you can see there. Next slide. Great. We're going to go to questions. As I said, please feel free to start asking questions in the chat room. I'm going to answer one quick one just because it's a quick one, and then we had some great feedback from Stephen Rainey and some other folks in the discussion. One question we had, let's see here. Oh, we got a bunch at once. That's great. Jay Powell, thank you so much for your question. You said, will these recommendations be presented to the White House and federal agencies in addition to the public? Konstantinos, feel free to interrupt here if I get anything not perfect, but the IEEE-USA, which is a different operating unit, has already actually prepared a wonderful presentation with the recommendations that are very similar to what we recommend in ethically aligned design, that are going to be sent to the White House or the new government. That said, a person who is involved in IEEE-SA is also on the executive committee for the initiative. Konstantinos, anything else you wanted to add there? I think that kind of answers it, but wanted to see if that was correct.
Yes, that in general, we have really foreseen the possibility to engage with governments, also with intergovernmental fora, international organizations, as to give advice, also to have bilateral dialogues, not only with the U.S., also with other governments and with international organizations. This is our plan.
Awesome. Thanks, Konstantinos. Next, and again, Stephen, I'll get to you. I'm just answering some quick questions before we get into kind of discussion ones. Thank you to Vincent. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name, Vincent. Dupork, Dupork. Anyway, forgive me. D-U-P-O-U-R-Q-U-E. Thank you, Vincent. Vincent asked about the wonderful BSI standard. The British Standard Institution put out a great document on robot ethics. We have been looking at that document a great deal. Alan Winfield, who is the co-chair of our General Principles Committee, had a hand in creating that, and it's an excellent document, we believe, and something where we're hoping to collaborate with them more in the future. You also asked, Vincent, about getting a copy of the P7000 document. Just to be clear, the working group has begun, and you're welcome to join the P7000 group. The actual document itself, we're actually building it. I say we because I'm working group chair. But you can email me after and get information about the working group, and then certainly join, and then you can see all the materials as they're getting built. Now, I do want to go back to honor Stephen, because Stephen Rainey had some wonderful insights. And let's see, Stephen here said, irrespective of the question of whether artificial intelligence is really intelligent or just simulating intelligence, it can be worth treating AI tech as an interlocutor in order to unlock some of the implicit values inevitably embedded within it. Treating tech as ethically patient and as ethically participant in order to make vivid its potential socio-ethical effects. And then Stephen was kind enough to say that the paper Ethically Aligned Design seems to be in line with this kind of method. Sarah, did you want to respond to that in terms of, I thought that was a really interesting statement.
I think we can look at ethics in intelligent systems from various perspectives. One is to ask the question, how can we make machines more ethical through algorithms that would be embedding ethical reasoning? And that's a huge research area. But the other aspect is, and I think in P7000 this is more the goal of what we want to achieve, is that we are asking how can we ensure that human beings can actually live their values better, so that machines support in people's improved health, or that machines support in people's better decision making, or that machines support in human freedom. So it's about, 7000 is about enhancing and improving our human values, and for trying to strengthen the human being. Whether the machines, by doing that, also need to become more ethical, also need to become stronger, it may be the fact, that it has to happen. But for sure, the focus is on trying to improve human well-being and avoid harm to well-being.
Awesome. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, everyone, for all the questions you're sending. We're going to do our best to get to all of them. Next, we have a question from Les Oakes. Les said, will there be alignment with ISO and IEEE projects? In terms of the working groups, I know 57,000, a big part of what we're doing is, doing our best to research what's out there so that, to your point, Les, we can align. As is the case, and Konstantinos, if you want to speak to this, I'm going to ask David to unmute your line too. Consensus building, of course, means finding out what already exists and complementing what's out there. Did you want to comment on that at all, Konstantinos?
Yes, very briefly. Of course, any organization should do the job there. We have started doing ours, and we are hoping that others are going to do similarly. For instance, the British Standards Institute, they have been leading the way with a first standard in the field of robotics. We have a collaboration with IEC and ISO, also mutual development of standards. This is a new field, and everybody has need to decide whether it is worth to invest. Definitely, we decided it is worth to invest there. And if the others are doing so, then we will discuss how we can join our forces and get the best out of it. Having said that, there is a difference between the processes of ISO and IEC and ours. Ours, we don't ask anybody to represent anything. In ISO, you must represent a country, in IEC also. So we have a direct participation system, which comes out of the internet tradition. So we appeal directly to the global technical communities. We don't ask for any passport or for any permission. And so these two systems are complementary, and we will try to do the best out of it when the circumstances demand it.
Awesome. Konstantinos, I may have another question for you, just because, again, I'm trying to go in order as people sent them. Frank Fong. Frank, thanks for your question. You asked, will these developed standards be shared and coordinated with other engineering organizations? Konstantinos, do you want to take that one?
I don't know exactly what this means with other engineering organizations. I mean, IEEE standards are out there. Everybody can use them. And like the Wi-Fi standards, they are used by many engineering organizations all around the world. So we very much hope they're going to be used too. Now the question arises if some organization wants to take a standard and adapt it. That means change it to local circumstances and so on. And this becomes very interesting. Then in this case, then we need to cooperate to avoid the scenario that the derived standard contradicts the original one, and so there is no compatibility and so on. This is very important for interoperability standards because we want our cellular phones and the Wi-Fi to work everywhere we are. But I believe that in the field of ethics, that we can have regional contextualization, which may not be exactly the same in different regions, and it may still work because it's not about interoperability anymore. And so there are very interesting things, but life will show. We are not there yet.
Great, thank you, Konstantinos. A quick thing just so everyone knows, the questions that were mentioned on the website for the webinar that talked about things like how you can define well-being with regards to these types of systems, and ethics is the new green. Just so you know, we are doing our best to cover those in our responses to these specific questions. If at the end of the call you feel that there was something you didn't learn that you wanted to learn, again, please feel free to email me, and we'll respond as quickly as we can with responses. What we're doing now is just really trying to honor the people who've asked specific questions in the group here. So next one. Again, Konstantinos, I'm calling on you a lot, so thank you. This is probably going to be for you. Corinne Kath, who is a really important part of the IEEE Global Initiative. So Corinne, thank you for calling in. She is co-chair with Raja Shatila of one of our committees and on another one. So just wanted to praise and thanks, Corinne. Corinne asked the following. What status will the second outcome document, meaning the second version of ethically aligned design, next October, have in the IEEE? Meaning, will it serve as advice to the organization? Will it function as a code of conduct? And will it be in any way binding with regards to for the IEEE to follow its recommendations? I can answer some of that, but of course I wanted to send that to you.
So this is an extremely interesting thing because IEEE has never, for obvious reasons, endorsed or adopted any of the content that is created on its platforms. An article may be very much an IEEE article, that means in an IEEE magazine, but it was never the case that IEEE said, I agree with the content of this article. And this is also the case with the work we're doing here. It is done with the IEEE process, the platforms with full support and so on, but it doesn't mean that IEEE a priori endorses the content. And this has been always the tradition of IEEE. And this may change now. And this is a very transformative process. This is what I alluded to in the beginning of my presentation, that our organization is in a bifurcation. Should we continue being just a neutral platform, or should we go a step further and say, no, we'll endorse some content, and this is too important, so IEEE stands behind it. And if this happens, this is a really transformative momentum then at IEEE, and I do not exclude it. We have very strong signals from the IEEE leadership that they're very much interested in the content of what we're presenting here, in particular the ethically aligned design as a whole. What I was hoping for, that IEEE could be interested in parts of it, because as John said, there are 8 parts and there will be perhaps 10 or 11. But it seems that IEEE is the leadership, they're interested in the whole thing. So this may well happen. I cannot promise it now. This is a long path. This year, we will need the whole year to socialize it, to discuss it and so on. But things look good because this is a very nice work. It is not trivial, and it takes positions, and but this may well happen.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Konstantinos. And Corinne, thanks for the great question. Really appreciate it. Next we have Louis Gray. Louis, great to hear from you. Louis wrote the concept, operation, and eventual termination of the Congressional Office of Technology Assessment is instructive about how technology issues might be managed to improve federal decision making. So of course this is an American office, and the OTA is what it's called. And Lewis's question was, has the OTA come up yet as a topic among the panel? In terms of the panel today, no, we haven't talked about the Office of Technology Assessment. My guess is IEEE-SA is working probably with them, but that's also something, Louis, thank you very much, we can bring up with regards to the IEEE Global Initiative, because it sounds like obviously it's a very important office. So thank you. Don McLaughlin next said, I just started a semester.
Sorry, John, if I may.
Yes.
If I may jump in, of course, not to answer a specific question about the Congress in the United States, but to give the information that the equivalent office in the French Parliament is informed about this work and is very interested about it, and I have provided them with a summary of this document and our work. Thank you.
Sure, and Raja, actually, I'm going to give you the next question. Thank you for talking there. And this next one, Raja, I'll read to you. Don McLaughlin, and again, Don, forgive me if I've messed up your last name, but Don said, I just started a semester undergraduate course on artificial intelligence at West Virginia University in U.S. So congrats, Don, on the class. That's awesome. I plan to wrap it up with some discussion of ethics and social implications. Any suggestions about resources to frame this problem in a senior level class? Now, I know, Raja, you teach, I believe, at a higher level in undergraduate, but can you comment on the type of material that Don might use in his curriculum, or how he might be able to, implement ethically aligned design for his work?
Actually, there is one section in the document that you will be able to download, which exactly address this problem that we consider that ethics is not part of degree programs in engineering specifically. So this is in the section number 3, methodologies to guide ethical research and design. We recognize that there is a problem there and provide some recommendation and some resources so that they can be used by the readers of this document. Now, for example, there is some papers, and one of them is mentioned. It's Philosophy Meets Internet Engineering Ethics in Network Systems Research, which was written by Corinne, who was mentioned earlier, and who participates in this group, in this committee. You can find also the book by Sarah, who spoke earlier, by Sarah Speakerman, about ethical IT innovation, the value-based system design approach. These are 2 example resources that you might look at and use for in your studies. But in addition, since this issue of ethics is more and more gaining visibility, there are more and more courses on ethics and webinars and also books. I can point, for example, at CMU, there is one such MOOC about ethics in robotics, and there are also a lot of slides and presentations that you can find on the web. But to my knowledge, there is not a specific resource center, and this is one thing that we want to do also. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, great question. And to Raj's point, the big goal for us this year at the IEEE Global Initiative and IEEE writ large is to start to create a lot more content that could be easily usable. As we are wrapping up, first of all, I want to say thank you, and so sorry we didn't get to all the questions. So to Paul Well and Zigrebnicki, forgive me about mispronouncing your name. Thank you, Paul, for your question. Diego Vicenten for taking the time to ask a question. Same thing with Alberto Pierney. Really appreciate everyone who took the time not just to show up, but to ask those questions. And because we didn't get to your specific issues, please feel free to email me directly. As you can see here, my email address. You can call me as well. As Raja pointed out, the first version of the report is at the link that you can see there. And with that, David, I'll just thank all the speakers, and David, especially you and the team that put this together, and everyone who took the time to call in. Really appreciate your time. Thanks, David.
Thanks, John. And thanks to all the speakers and everybody that joined as well. Kudos on a great presentation. I just want to let everybody know on the call, we will communicate to you when and where this on-demand recording for this webinar, because many people have asked throughout the duration where it will be available. So we'll communicate that with you, and with that, I'll take us out. Appreciate it, everybody. Have a great rest of the day.